We're going to hear about prioritization methods for APHIS monitoring of GDOT, Georgia DOT bridges during migratory bird nesting season. Presenting will be Carolyn, Bryan from AECOM with Sharilyn, Meyers, Ashlie Stone, and Sujai, Veeramachaneni. I think he's going to be virtually from Georgia DOT.
All right, I could go ahead and speak if y'all can, handle the mouse clicks for me. That'll be awesome. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Sujai Veeramachaneni. I'm a Senior Special Projects Coordinator at the Georgia Department of Transportation. I'd like to give my co-presenter, Carolyn, a chance to introduce herself, and then I can give you all a broad overview about the presentation that we're going to talk about today. Over to you, Carolyn, real quick. All right. Today we're going to talk about, the Georgia Department of Transportation has this ongoing partnership with the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, which is, kind of a sister agency to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So broadly with this partnership, from the GDOT end, it was myself and the Assistant State Environmental Administrator, Mr. Doug Chamberlain, who's kind of helped with this partnership. And, we brought in some consulting firms, for example, Carolyn, Bryan at AECOM has helped a great deal, with some of the work that's being conducted at the AECOM end. Next slide, please. Thank you. The presentation is going to cover a broad overview of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act protections on GDOT projects. So we're going to give you a little background about what GDOT does in order to protect migratory birds and comply with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. In addition, we're also going to talk about the GDOT and APHIS partnership that we started having with them in 2020. Good chunk of the presentation is going to be talking about the overall nest management effort that we had in 2024. And, the current year's management efforts and some new applications that are being developed in order to kind of, automate and make this entire process a lot more better. Last but not the least, last year we also did a pilot study on, managing migratory bird nests and culverts, and we're going to talk a little about that too. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. So the Migratory Bird Treaty Act is required, the Georgia Department of Transportation is ordered to comply with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, in order to avoid take of migratory bird species. Now, the act itself covers a broad list of species, but for the purpose of, GDOT projects, the species that we're going to be focusing on cliff swallows, barn swallows, and eastern phoebes. So in order to ensure, that migratory bird nests are protected or migratory birds are protected, our previous practice was, to incorporate special provision documents in the bid contract to a contractor. So these are essentially documents or contractual documents which kind of talk about, what the contractor needs to do prior to commencing any work on a structure. It could be demolition of the structure, it could be the maintenance of the structure, or it could be, a structure wherein, they're going to build or rebuild. And we also, one of the most important things is, the exclusionary devices are meant to be installed on the bridge structures prior to, doing any work. In addition to that, we had special provisions that talk about, the seasonal restrictions. So really, we're cutting out about 5 months of, the contractor's time, and we're essentially telling them, we can't work during the 5-month period, which is a migratory bird season that starts on April 1st to August 31st, if they don't have exclusions already installed on the structure. Now, the prime purpose of the exclusions was, to keep away active birds from building their nests on the structure. Next slide, please. I'd like to give you all, kind of broad timeline about, what we did prior to 2016 and, what we're going to do currently and what we've done over the past few years. So back in 2016, like I mentioned, we did have special provisions that were incorporated, into the bid contract. we had the special provisions written in a way that would cover, provisions that would help the protection of migratory birds and other species that you could find on the project. And these could be any federally or state listed species. Now, broadly, the provisions that we had prior to 2016 included, requirements where we restrict the contractor with bridge demolition by, the installation of exclusionary devices. Subsequently, from 2016 to 2020, we kind of split up, the special provision 107.23G into two separate special provisions. One was the 107.23G, which primarily focused on migratory birds, and then all the other federally and state listed species were documented under the special provision 107.23H. And eventually, the special provision 107.23G was converted into a standard specification that kind of made its way into every project contract because, almost all projects, have either some amount of bridge or culvert work that would occur. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so that was something that we did from 2016 to 2020. In 2020, one of the things that we realized was, while we were installing nets on these structures, we started noticing that, the nets were entangling migratory birds. So we ran into scenarios that resulted in, fatality of migratory birds and associated wildlife as well. Multiple instances wherein, we found pigeons, snakes entangled in these nets. And so we had to take a bold decision to say, this is something that we're not going to happen to allow, on the GDOT projects. And we kind of need to improve this in a way, that we're reducing the number of take of migratory bird species, and then we kind of started brainstorming, did some research initiatives, and kind of reached out to all the DOTs in the country and said, what are all your practices? What do you all do, in terms of managing for migratory bird nests? And then we managed to get in touch with the South Carolina DOT, and they already had a program that they were implementing at their end, which was essentially a tie-up with the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services. Then they primarily do wildlife control, that they were helping on the GDOT structures. And then, so in 2020, we developed an agreement with GDOT APHIS, and, we started implementing that program. And the program broadly talks about, how APHIS would come out prior to the migratory bird nesting season and manage for migratory bird nests on the structure, prior to demolition or maintenance activities. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that we did back in the day was, we used multiple databases in order to, kind of bring up these lists of projects or develop these lists of projects that required migratory bird nest management. This was a huge effort and a manual effort that took, a lot of time on a monthly basis. We kind of ended up spending close to about 2 weeks, just spending time on spreadsheets, data mining, and things like that. So in 2024, we basically said, all right, we've got to make this process a lot more simpler. It involved a lot of coordination and communication with our different teams, APHIS biologists, contractors, district construction folks, and folks at the Office of Environmental Services. And so we wanted to develop a way in order to kind of, automate this entire process to make it easier and, have real-time communication with all these partners that we're kind of working with on a day-to-day basis, to manage migratory bird nests. And so with that, I'd like to kind of hand over the presentation, to Carolyn Bryan, who's from AECOM, and she's going to take a deep dive into, some of the automation that's been done on this program. Thank you. Over to you, Carolyn.
Okay, so I'm Carolyn Bryan. I didn't catch that before. I work with AECOM. You saw Sujai's timeline. Since 2020, APHIS has been involved in assisting with migratory bird nest management on bridges for GDOT. GDOT provides in January a list of bridges that are going to be worked on that year. And beginning in February, APHIS biologists that are partnered with them start removing old nests from these bridges so that they can actually work during the construction, the nesting season. Partial and inactive nests are removed ahead of time, and then during the season, it's monitored month to month, and depending on the project schedules, and nests are removed periodically. So this is the 24 summary of what the efforts were in 2024. There are 7 biologists that work with GDOT across the state, and there's their regions. This is what the figure is showing. During 2024 nest season, they had 169 bridges that were being monitored. APHIS coordinated directly with the district, the region districts, and with the contractors working on the sites, and built a good working relationship with them so they would communicate back and forth about the changes in their projects and project schedules. They had limited take and they had no project delays. This is just showing how many bridges were surveyed and how many nests were removed per district. Over 7 districts, there were a total of 169 bridges surveyed. This was by these 7 biologists, over 1,600 visits, and the total number of nests in 2024 was just over 5,000. These figures are just showing just the summary of like where these bridges were in 2024. So the one on the left with yellow is showing the bridge locations of these 169 bridges during 2024. And then the next in red on the right is showing which were barn swallows. The purple on the left is showing cliff swallow locations of those nests, and the right blue dots are showing eastern phoebe locations. So between 2024 and 2025, they were working to identify in 2024 really. It was like they started to look for identifying problematic structures so they could flag those structures. In addition to knowing which bridges were going to be worked on, they would be able to flag the problematic structures going forward. So some of those lists that APHIS came up with was the heights being over 30 feet, non-wadable rivers and streams, a substructure skew making it difficult to see nests, coastal settings, this was a culvert, one of our culverts, but biological dangers, but also the same thing with the wadable, non-wadable structure heights being high, and then tidal influences, and then the last 2 being over heavy traffic and over railroads, of course, that making it difficult to work to remove the nests. So in 2025, they, instead of doing an automated process that we have, they created an application to help better facilitate coordination between GDOT OES and the construction contractors and the USDA APHIS biologists. What they have is, thank you. So they can log in from their phones in the field, and they can sort by their district and their area and by the specific area manager. And then they're able to select which bridge they're like wanting to update, where they're at in the field. And then they can fill in a survey in real time, like providing what type of work, if there's going to be work under the bridge, it's going to be during the nesting season, just regular updates. And they can do this from month to month. So initially with this application, we were getting a lot of responses in January time before nesting season started in February, but the districts weren't responding and updating. So we didn't know which projects were falling off the list or if there were changes in the project schedules. So what this is showing you is that there are APHIS site prioritization throughout the breeding season. It fluctuates based on contractor schedules and bridge construction progress throughout the season. So it's, like as I said, it's pulled monthly. The ones that we focus on are the high priority. This means that projects are active and the district is anticipating work on them between April and August during that 5-month nesting season. Projects that are medium priority are active, but the district's unsure if the work is going to be conducted during the nesting season. Low priority are the project may or may not be active, but work on the bridge is unlikely during the nesting season. 0, project work is not anticipated during the season, or it's already been completed. And TBD, the project is on hold or delayed, and the timing of the bridge work is to be determined. So in addition, I think Sujai mentioned this, APHIS has been primarily focused on nests on bridges. But in 2024, they decided to try a pilot program to see if they could also incorporate monitoring nesting in culverts that require construction. Right now, and what they were doing was just the special provisions have exclusionary devices, generally strip curtains on either side that is being worked on. We came up with a list of projects to survey and developed a decision tree for determining how often to revisit these sites. They were revisited every 3, 7, or 14 days. Of course, there's a lot more culverts, and this is what it looked like. It's very basic. We're doing scraping. A lot of them, the culverts that we had weren't very high. You could like reach up and like, so this is a mirror just to see if there's, that's very basic. So in 2024, we had 218 site inspections across 25 projects. 14 of them were surveyed for the entirety of the nesting season. But the breakdown of that was 3-day 91 surveys, 7-day 85 surveys, 14-day 12 surveys. 30 of those in that 218 were initial investigations that were marked complete due to work or was already complete, or it was not going to occur during this year or during the nesting season this year. And I guess the takeaway from this pilot project was we're dealing with 25 projects only across the entire state. And APHIS, as you saw, already had many bridges, like 169 bridges to monitor. So adding culverts to this is determined to not really be feasible to their workload at this time. So they're going to stick with their special provision for culverts at this point. And with that, take questions, and Sujai's on to answer any that I can't.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
I have 2 questions. Your nesting season that you had with April, August, is that static for total DOT, or is it adjusted based on, annual fluctuations?
It's it would be static. It's April 1st to August 31st.
Okay. And then when your app that was used in the field, was that just a field map for survey 1, 2, 3? Or did you guys use something to program?
Sujai, do you want to take that question?
Absolutely. Could you repeat that, Carolyn? It was very faint.
I'm sorry. She was asking whether the application was on survey 1, 2, 3, or what the application was on.
Yes, the application was on survey 1, 2, 3. And I think, APHIS also uses what's called a field form, an ArcGIS field form, but the present application was developed on survey 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I have also, I guess, 2 questions. And one is the federal cutbacks. Is APHIS going to continue to provide the service? And the second question is with the current administration, revision of the take rule. Is that going to change how we implement?
So the first question about the federal cutbacks, I think that, and Sujai, correct me if I'm wrong, the APHIS biologists are actually funded through GDOT, the ones that they have working on this project. So our cutbacks are concerned, Sujai.
That's correct. Yeah, we've got a contract with the APHIS biologists, and we kind of fund the program overall. What was the second question, Carolyn?
What was the second part of that? Sorry.
Incidental take rule has been reinterpreted by the current administration, so is that going to change how GDOT?
With the changes in the incidental take rule, is that going to change how GDOT interprets their program?
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood. Could you repeat that once again? With
Wait.
the
Changes in incidental take, is that going to change the program?
Okay, I don't think it's really going to change the program. I mean, previously we used to have a lot of take prior to 2020 when we were using the old methodology. And, you know, right now we do have like a take statement that's built into the MOA. But, you know, I think we've definitely made a lot of progress, you know, and reduced the number of takes significantly with the help of the APHIS program. And, you know, the previous practice of using nets, you know, was really very bad for us.
Any questions? Just have time.
How do you tell that it's safe to remove the nest if is there like a female's about to lay an egg and she needs to take the nest down and then they're in trouble because now they don't have a place? Like, what is that cutoff point for knowing what the bird's really you need to leave the nest even though there's not actually a egg?
So I've had this concern as well. I don't actually know, like, this is what we're basing it on really is solely whether there are eggs or young in the nest. And the surveys being like more often, more frequent, were based on bird activity and whether we were seeing birds around the culverts or not. But as far as was there a complete nest and is that going to impact the bird, that I don't know. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We've got about 20 minutes right before the next session begins.
And I do ask all presenters who are here, please take a look at the Slido. There's a couple questions waiting for you guys in there if you want to answer them. I know we ran out of time towards the end. Thank you for the patience with everyone.